Welcome, everyone. I'm absolutely delighted today to be able to introduce our guest for this innovation session on new product development. And our guest for today's show is my friend and colleague, Joanne Moretti. And Joanne has a 32-year career in high tech and advanced manufacturing industries. And I've known her for at least a dozen of those years. She's held C-level, C-suite positions at companies such as Jabil and Hewlett Packard and Dell and so forth. And she is currently the Chief Revenue Officer at Fictive. And I had an opportunity to learn more about Fictive during COVID, during the pandemic, with the supply chain issues that we were facing, and was really fascinated to learn about Fictive and its mission to simplify sourcing by delivering digital infrastructure for custom manufacturing. So Joanne is currently the Chief Revenue Officer there. She also has any number of awards, a top 50 women in tech influencer in 2021, and a number of other distinguished accomplishments. And just really delighted that we're going to have this time together. So first, let me welcome you, Joanne.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. And I apologize up front for looking that way and looking this way. I've got those two big screens here at home, and so sometimes my eyes go that way. But thank you for having me on your show. It's exciting. You and I did a lot of work together at HP, and then some work at Fictive, like you said, during the pandemic. Your expertise and background in the life sciences is just unmatched. We worked with you on developing all types of sales and go-to-market strategies. You helped us at the HP Sales University just understand healthcare, and same at Jabil. You came in and helped me there as well, just understand how even the FDA process works and what are the gotchas and how to innovate through that web and set of complexity. So really appreciate your thought leadership. And I'm happy to be here talking about innovation because I know that's your passion.
Yes. Well, thank you, Joanne. I'm going to give you an opportunity to show all of the ways that you shine. But yeah, we want to talk today about the power of innovation with a focus on new product development. And I always like to kind of level set with the definition of innovation. And my definition is that innovation is creating something new that offers benefits over the standard way of doing things. But very importantly, it has to have an advance or a technique that a customer is willing to pay for. And so if you're in the business world, if the commercialization of innovation is important to you, that's really critical. The other thing I want to point out is that innovation really does occur along a continuum. And obviously, we can have disruptive, transformative innovations. We have serendipity as a source, but we can also have innovations that help us understand a better way to do something, a better way of processing, better improvement of workflows. And we call that type of innovation optimization. And there's also innovation where we take already existing technologies, we combine them in new and different ways for new and different use cases. And I like to call that version renovation. And I really think that both the optimization and the renovation are very significant today, because what we want to do is talk about an aspect of new product development that to some extent, I don't know that it's really had the headlines that it deserves. And particularly now when it's hard to pick up any industry publication without talking about generative AI, I feel like it's just dominating. I think it's good for us to kind of hearken back to an innovation that was actually first developed in the 1980s and has just advanced in so many different ways in terms of the innovation itself, but also its important applications and use cases. And that's the technology around 3D printing. And when I think about 3D printing, there are ways that 3D printing itself, the materials involved in it, materials sciences, have made those materials stronger, more robust, more unique than ever before. We can talk about biologics, we can talk about construction grade materials that go into making aerospace engines and airplanes, as well as organs for the human body. We can even talk about buildings that are now being constructed through 3D printing. And that brings us to the other aspect of the technology, which is as it's continued to grow and evolve and become much more capable, we think about all of the additional applications and use cases. And so all the innovation that's being made possible as people are being able to apply this new technology. So, why is this important? Well, additive manufacturing, and Joanne will help us understand a little bit more about this definition, but it has a compounded annual growth rate of almost 25%, really significant, valued at $22.4 billion, and projected to grow to over $105 billion by 2030, according to Fortune magazine. And as I mentioned, it's been around since 1980 when Charles W. Hull first invented the process and made the first 3D printed part. So it's pretty simple. It's about software that designs an object in 3 dimensions. So it's computer aided design. And then the printing piece of it is where we think about ink in our regular inkjet printer going on a piece of paper. In 3D printing, these materials that go into the machine, actually it's designed in such a way that they are added layer by layer, whether they're plastic or whatever that particular piece of material is, in order to adjust to shape, rigidity, color. And, this can be done on a desktop, and there can also be done in room-sized printers. So I like to make things simple. I'm all about simplicity. And so one piece of application of 3D printing that really resonated with me as I've continued to study this technology and how it's advancing. So I am a chocolate aficionado, as anybody who knows me might remember. And so I really had a lot of fun watching a YouTube video because 3D chocolate is one of the food products that's now being 3D printed. And so I watch this guy on YouTube get his favorite chocolate combinations, dark chocolate, white chocolate, milk chocolate, etc. He melted them in the printer. They got extruded, and he was making his own chocolate bars. I was on the Hershey website, and if you go to the Hershey factory and the showroom, they'll show you how they're making chocolate bars with your name on them. They're making chocolate in the shape of people, different figures. And so I thought that was really kind of a fun application of this technology, is to know that you can make your own chocolate in your home. And as I turn things over to Joanne, who's going to give us some more serious use cases, but Joanne, I think that you have come to the show with a 3D printed something that you're going to tell us about. So please tell us about your favorite 3D printed application.
So I'm actually wearing them. We'll start with that. You started with chocolate. By the way, that's a dangerous thing for me. 3D printing chocolate would be extremely dangerous for me. But I love, accessories and jewelry and things like that. So I bought these earrings when I found out they were 3D printed. Very lightweight, plasticky kind of, material with some color dipped in. And those are my favorite sort of 3D printing, 3D printed items are these earrings. And what that brings us to is, I think you're going to talk about innovation and really how is 3D printing enabling innovation. But I think it brings us to the point around it really tears down barriers for innovation. Why is it becoming so popular? It tears down a few barriers. So I don't know if you want to jump into that right now, or if you
Please.
Yeah.
No, yeah, please do. Let's go.
So, just like the story with the earrings, I mean, what's happening is with 3D printing, of course, there's less capital to invest in. You're not building out factories. There's less, assemblies required and all types of secondary processes that are involved and things like that. 3D printing breaks down a lot of barriers. The other thing it breaks down is sometimes engineering barriers, and it's a tool for problem solving. In other words, engineers can actually get more accomplished with 3D printers because you can do more geometries. It also helps reduce this barrier around, inventory and how many quantities that you need to keep on hand as far as running a business is concerned, because you can go into an on-demand mode. 3D printing actually enables on-demand anything, right? On-demand personalization, but also on-demand fabrication. So if you're running an e-commerce site and you're selling something, you don't have to keep thousands of them in stock. If you're using 3D printing as your primary manufacturing process with some, let's say, light assembly work or light work like that, you can literally keep your inventory down. So that's another barrier. And that has to do with, when capital is scarce, that certainly comes in handy. So it removes all these barriers around innovating, creating new designs, getting you to market faster, and capital restrictions that you might have, obviously. So resources, capital, and speed. Wow, what a combination of benefits. Think about that for a second. So it's not only a tool for large organizations, it's really a tool for anyone. It really breaks down barriers, period. And I think it kind of democratizes manufacturing. I hate using that word. It's such a big mouthful, but it's true. It really puts at manufacturing, makes it much more accessible to everyone.
Joanne, that's a terrific opening to the benefits of it and why we do view it as an important innovation. When we were chatting, kind of building up to this, you also talked about its impact on ESG. And I really think it would be terrific for our audience to hear, because I honestly had really not thought about that aspect or benefit of it. So talk a little bit about that too.
For sure. So I think it's relevant big time right now. It's part of the conversation around ESG for sure, because it's so efficient. And it, again, doesn't require big factories, right? I've seen people running 3D print shops, wall to wall 3D printers, maybe some robots doing some things in between and some people, but I've seen very efficient, very clean 3D printing environments. The other aspect of ESG is it reduces the amount of material waste, right? You're not chopping and cutting and lasering and removing material in old traditional sort of manufacturing style, right? That's subtractive manufacturing. This is additive. And to your point, you're adding layers of material and adding only what you need. Remember that saying, only what you need to survive, take only what you need? That's the same concept and principle here. You only print what you need according to your specification, according to your data and your design. And then nothing's left on the floor, right? There, you might be polishing and you might be doing, a secondary process on that part, but you're not really like cutting and wasting things. So there's a couple of really good elements. I mean, I've seen people rethink, old 50-year-old dirty factories and say, how can we rebuild this whole environment using 3D printers and new innovations like that and advanced manufacturing.
Yeah, and I know, well, and I know we're going to talk about that in just a moment as well. But so you bring up you kind of harkened back, to former days of dirty manufacturing, et cetera. So if we think about the fact that this technology was first created in the 80s, maybe take us through a little bit, not an exhaustive history, but how would you say that it's advanced and improved over time, right? The original simple, maybe most simplistic prototyping use case all the way to what we're seeing today.
Yeah, I think a lot of things are improving. The whole sort of ecosystem of 3D printing, all of the different, players that play a role in this 3D printing market, whether it's building machines, whether it's building materials, whether it's building, companies and partnerships, and all these things are getting stronger and better, right? So everybody is improving. Let's say it's quickly evolving. So materials now, for example, there are some incredible materials available. We are talking about fire retardant materials. We are talking about different color materials, and we're talking about conductive materials that are needed in sort of the electronics manufacturing and things like that. So we're talking about everything's improving. And then machines are getting faster and they're evolving. And the problem with 3D printing and fast in the past was that 3D printing and fast didn't go well together, because something happened called warping. When you're going too fast and layering in the material too fast, you get warping, you get defects. Now machines have improved and the materials have improved. And so what now you're getting is higher quality outputs, higher quality parts from 3D printers. So I think, like I said, everything is evolving. The machines, the materials, our know-how, we know more. What's also involving is the engineers. It's become a tool in their toolkit, and they use it differently. So whereas you might design a product or a part a certain way, with 3D printing, because you can, again, do more with it, more geometries can be accomplished, different angles, different wall sizes, all types of different things can be accomplished. It means that now you can create more. You can unlock even more innovation. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's a pretty exciting thing about 3D printing, is it's coming of age.
Yeah. And so, Joanne, I mean, we've got the prototyping use cases, and then the flexibility. If you don't like your prototype, you can quickly spin up a new one. I think you've given some examples of really large production. I mean, we're able to now 3D print airplanes. You posted on LinkedIn, I think it was a post office in India that was designed and put up through 3D printing. And then we've also got this whole post-market piece, right? So what's happening in the post-market sort of maintenance arena with 3D printing. And I know you have some terrific examples of where we need to be able to create parts on demand when something breaks. And so maybe you can talk a bit about that, because I think you had a space station example.
Yeah, let me give you some examples. And I want to say, just to go back to the product design and development, and then pre-production, and then production stages, like there's testing and validation in there. There's so many stages, this in the product life cycle, right? And so different stages may require different things to happen, different materials, design refinements, you're iterating, and so on and so forth. What we're finding is people are coming to Fictive, as we're an on-demand manufacturing. So we tap into capacity. Our goal in life is to simplify sourcing. So we tap in and we find the capacity, the printing capacity, the manufacturing capacity across the globe, and then we deliver it. We serve it up to our customers. So their demand, we're meeting it by leveraging all this latent capacity that's all over the globe. And so what's happening there is you don't have to lock in terms of a 3D printing technology or material. Fictive gives you complete flexibility, no matter what stage you are in the product lifecycle. So if your prototype requires a small sort of, do-it-yourself 3D print at the front end, printer, but at the back end may require a big, Stratasys machine or HP MJF kind of machine, or something a little more heavy duty, right? What's cool is you don't have to lock in to any of those three. You don't have to take religion up with any of those, big brands. You can have that flexibility to use whatever along that product life cycle continuum. So that's one benefit of working with Fictive and 3D printing. You get access to different materials and different hardware technologies that are out there. Now, in terms of the MRO, or the maintenance and repair, the sort of on-demand parts, like for break fix, after sale. That's happening too. What we're seeing is a lot of companies now coming to us saying, I want to have those parts ready on my truck, my service trucks, my service people. I want to have them ready and on the truck. And so when I get a call that something is, broken and not working, I can immediately have someone at that business or at that consumer's place to fix whatever it is they need fixed. That's the beauty of 3D printing, right? So the service people can call up what they need through a digital library and say, I need this part reproduced and I need it in less than 24 hours. Where do I pick it up? So what happens there is you're creating a whole different level of customer experience. I mean, we get frustrated, for example, if we call service for our Whirlpool, whatever, right? Dishwasher, what have you. And, we get frustrated, or our air conditioning. Let's use air conditioning as a relevant topic. When that air conditioning goes down, I need that air conditioning fixed quickly. If those folks don't have those parts on their truck and it takes 2, 3, 4 weeks to order that part, that's ridiculous. That's not the level of customer experience I want as a consumer. Businesses are in the same boat. They need to deliver, right? And so that service, whether it's a surgical robot that needs to be fixed, right? A new part or what have you. So that on-demand part of fictive, where we can turn stuff around in short lead times, and get them, a 3D printed part or even a machined part quickly, just changes that whole customer experience aftermarket.
Yeah.
Right? After the purchase.
Yeah. And I mean, Joanne, can you share the space station story?
Oh, yeah.
I love that one. And then I also love the one of the medical robotic manufacturer and how they're using this, like, in the repair mode that you're mentioning, and this whole open source idea of not getting stuck to one manufacturer for that part, but also the idea of the agility and on demand. But
And the
I love the space station story.
Yeah, so the space station story is so cool. So I know Anusha Ansari, who was a former astronaut, and I got to know her because she sat on the board at Jabil, and she actually lives here in DFW. And so we were just chit-chatting one time, and we were talking about 3D printing, and she said, "Oh, 3D printing is incredible in space." And I'm like, "What? In space?" And she says, "Yeah, it's incredible in space." I said, "Tell me more." She said, "Well, we don't have like a parts depot down the street when you're in space. You actually need to have what you need on hand right there. And we have limited space to house all these extra parts that we need. So 3D printing is a godsend in terms of space exploration." And so I hadn't thought about that, but think about all the use cases around that where things need to be instantly fixed. So another one like that is exactly that surgical robotics story that I told you about. And I can't tell you the customer's name, but I can tell you that when we deliver on-demand parts for them, it changes everything. And also, in terms of like, if that operating, because they're providing the service for all their surgical robots, so it's all about keeping those hospitals up and running, keeping operations going, right? Keeping all the surgeries on schedule and going. And so having this ability to get what you need on demand changes everything, right? Because hospitals will not sit around and wait. And that surgical robot can't be down, because if it's down, again, it throws off everything, including revenues.
No, I think that's a really important example. Somebody's coming in for a GI or, some sort of a life-saving surgery, and a part goes down. You need to be able to address that immediately. So I really appreciate the dynamic case studies that 3D printing, the problems it's solving. And I do want to see if there are any questions from our audience, but while we're kind of taking a look at those, what are some of your other favorite use cases? I know we talked about the factory of the future. What could that possibly look like? What are all the components of the factory of the future, and what does that look like?
Well, we're all talking about advanced manufacturing and that factory of the future, and it's really all about managing that factory through all the data that we're getting, right? So I'm seeing, this is a little bit of a different, and 3D printers and injection molding machines and things like that talking to one another, right? And so if a 3D printer is out of material, I've seen a robot fill the material in a 3D printer environment, or load up material in an injection molding sort of process. So what we're seeing is now technologies are coming together. And why is that important? It's really important because one of the biggest conversations that's going on, and we talked about this in the supply chain world, is that a lot of companies are thinking about moving processes and manufacturing back here to the States. And some of them aren't thinking about it. A lot of them are doing it. And so because of the fact that we just wouldn't have the labor pools to support some of these huge shifts, the only way to accomplish this manufacturing is through advanced manufacturing, is through programmable machines, and machines that can then share data and talk to one another and actually accomplish processes together, right? And so I think this is a big deal, where not only are you taking 3D printing, but you're taking other technologies like IoT, AI. I've seen people using augmented reality, right, to do design work and remote troubleshooting and things like that. So there's all kinds of technology flowing into manufacturing right now. All kinds of technologies.
Yeah.
The core is data.
Yeah. Yeah. Really great example. So Joanne, we've got a couple questions, and one of them, I guess, for our audience is maybe it appears that 3D printing is not very well integrated into the manufacturing process. So, and I know I quoted a very big CAGR and growth rate, moving forward, but what needs to happen, I guess, in order to make 3D printing much more integrated in the way we do manufacturing, a little bit more, many more use cases used more broadly? It does seem like a no-brainer.
It really does. I think people are just grounded in, they do what they know. And I think it's really a matter of advocates like myself, like yourself, and others to create awareness. I think the only boundary is ourselves. I think we have to look at the way we're doing engineering and product development differently. And then I think we have to look at the, manufacturing processes differently. And I know companies that are doing this. Jabil, for example, where I used to work, is doing some incredible things with 3D printing. And they're looking at, applying it in all different types of their processes. And so I think that, and not just Jabil, GE, same thing, right? GE is putting additive in so many different places. Some of these really, really large OEMs are looking at 3D printing as, the next big thing. So it's about creating awareness. It's about the use cases. Not every use case is perfect for 3D printing. Not everything can be 3D printed. We have to set realistic expectations. We have to experiment, and we have to, really look at where's the ROI and where's the best bang for the buck. Like, how do we generate efficiency and profitability and better customer experiences through 3D printing, and looking at those and then finding the best fits.
Sounds like we have enough fodder for another session on this topic, Joanne, because we're out of time now. But this idea of, yes, how do we spur greater adoption, more use cases? I mean, there's definitely economic efficiency, speed efficiencies, ROI, but a lot more that we could pursue in terms of what are those optimal use cases, and how will 3D printing get adopted much more broadly in order to hit that CAGR, or that growth rate of over $100 billion by 2030. Well, Joanne, this has been delightful, as I knew it would be. You're just full of great examples and insights and perspectives on this topic. So I'm sure that our audience has enjoyed this today. And I wish you a great rest of the afternoon. And thank you again for sharing your insights and thoughts with us on 3D printing, really great example of innovation in new product development.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. And if anyone needs any, help or has any questions, please visit us at www.fictive.com or just write to me directly on LinkedIn. I'm happy to have a conversation with anyone.
Yes, excellent. All right, I'm going to end the broadcast. Thank you
Bye,
all.
everyone.